Chapter 1 Beginning. You are listening at famvetv.info. Strolling down the wide hallway with the endless lines of red lockers was always the hardest time for Lex, walking in the wide open and being vulnerable, the weak boy that had been stuck at LVL1 since birth, and was always bullied by the other popular, rich and powerful kids, couldn't remember the last time he was happy. "Look at that LVL1 trash," screamed a student while pointing at Lex. Lex lowered his head and ignored the insult knowing that he couldn't refute, while the rest of the students laughed at him. Humanity, after reaching a threshold and pinnacle of technology, entered a long era of peace and prosperity and started focusing on outside of the clouding sky, the universe. Once, while experimenting with space itself and extraterrestrial objects and beings, they had disrupted the balance of law of space on Earth, causing various different dimensions with beasts, and other more powerful and intelligent races to gain access of the Mother Earth, threatening humanity. Humanity, now in constant danger and wars, was unable to defend the Earth even with their advanced technology, mechs and mass destruction weapons. Death and destruction were all that remained in the places ravaged by the beasts and extraterrestrial beings. The humans that were once the top of the food chain fell down to the lowest. The humans who were captured were used as slaves and research subjects, while for the beasts we were a delicious snack. Over time the humans were only left with a country-sized piece of land holding a population of 100 million humans. Yes, 98% of humanity had perished during the Dark Ages. Finally, a human scientist had discovered the way of survival. After the opening of the dimensions and due to holes in space, the dark energy, which was previously unavailable and makes up the 80% of the universe, has entered the Earth's atmosphere, which can be used by the body to strengthen it, gaining unimaginable power and the power to break off the limit of mortality, and created a system categorizing people's talent of absorbing a considerable amount of energy into F, E, D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSS, and that's how the humans fought back. And after the long and continuous wars, they were finally able to take back Earth. They never invaded the other planets as they knew with their current situation it was a miracle that they were able to take back Earth as the wars were still raging on the borders of the dimensions, as they focused on building the strength of their forces until after a few hundreds of years, when technology developed once again to heights that surpassed the past. Humanity was able to take over 4 other planets and became a race that had some footing within the universe. History and calendars were all a blur in the current times. Before, humans who used to be united and stood strong, now split apart, forming their own organizations, groups, and families for their own selfish desires and gain. This made the education system and all life revolve around strength, which was measured and based upon the olden day things called games, which showed the percentage of each realm of power you have completed. Now Lex was 14 in high school and it was the last day of junior high school. If you're not strong, handsome, or rich, you are bullied and segregated and would never have a good time or go far in these times. As school finished, and being an orphan who had always been living off from what is provided by the government and due to his low talent, Lex, who became a young adult at 14, had no choice but to join the government. Lex had no parents since birth and was mysteriously found at a crash site alone without anybody nearby. After scanning the baby and confirming he was human, he was taken to an orphanage where no one wanted to be friends with him. Everybody looked for their own gain, and a frail orphan who had nothing to offer would be shunned and treated like trash. Years passed and he lived in a small apartment in the slums which was provided by the government, and he found that instead of wasting his time with others, he would cram as much information within his mind that he could. From a young age, all he did was research on Skynet using an old ancestral laptop that he found while searching a trash bin, and was scoring top grades in all subjects. Yet it still wasn't enough for the deluded and ignorant boy to break away from where the fate has placed him, and with humanity's quality of envy being untamable, it brought him even more trouble. Being abused and prosecuted had become a daily occurrence for him, and was even eventually segregated and harassed to the point that the abuse became physical. Patience and hope were all he had, as he lay low by keeping his grades just below average to get by. But being LVL1 throughout his life without wealth, he was still abused. Now, as an official young adult, and not being talented in leveling, he could either work slave-like jobs for people who weren't levelers or work as a cannon fodder. Society was cruel, and Lex was currently on the firing range and had no idea what he was supposed to do. I have only average grades on my record, so I won't be allowed in any department that needs you to be smart like the research, mechanic and IT departments, so the only thing left is the army and labor departments, he thought to himself as he planned sorrowfully for his future. Normally he was beaten up or abused by bullies all the time on his way out of school, but today he wasn't bullied yet, which made him feel odd, and thinking that it was up to his luck, he tried to not attract any attention while commanding his legs to walk as fast as they can. But joke's on him, being the weakest and not from a prestigious background, being an orphan, had made people in better situations look at him with pity, so avoiding all the gazes of the students looking down on him, he walked towards the exit. No one is bullying me today, he thought as he reached the exit, going down the stairs giddily, daydreaming that he got away without a beating until he saw a fist being launched at him, and with no time to maneuver, as he felt a sudden pain on his face as he stumbled and fell back. He furiously glared at the person who was standing in front of him. I thought I got away, yet this bully Jonah can bully me all day because he thinks he is rich. It is the last day of school, I cannot let myself be bullied on the last day, he said to himself, trying to convince himself to gain the confidence to fight back, steeling his will. He glared back at them without a single hint of fear and let out all the pent-up anger he had suppressed over the past years. Over the past 4 years of being in this school, the one to bully him the most was Jonah. He was from a large and wealthy family that was of high status, but as Jonah was AF grade talent, even with all the resources, he was merely an LVL1 trash, just like Lex.to relieve his own frustration of having F-ranked talent and to feel better about himself. He would always let his anger out on Lex, who has an E-level talent, but Lex decided to no longer be stepped on. "Fuck you and your goons," he screamed as the adrenaline pumped through his veins, and he launched a fist with all his power to the arrogant Jonah's face, but being from a rich family made it so that the surrounding people were LVL 2, 3, and the strongest at LVL 4 with low talents of E. An increase in an LVL would be equivalent to increasing the overall capability of a human being by around 10%, but it would vary on talent and the original body of the leveler. Not expecting the weak coward who they bullied all this time would strike back, the punch shocked him. But, without any hint of fear, he just smirked, and as soon as the fist was going to land on him, another fist came from a side much faster and stronger and punched Lex on the face. It was the level 3 who made the move, even if only 30% improvement, it was much stronger than a normal adult human. Lex was launched into the air and was sent flying backwards, hitting his back onto the large and sharp corner of the steps. He had 2 teeth broken and blood splattering from his mouth and a swollen cheek. I wasn't able to do it, it was all waste, my training of 4 years, and I still can't even compare to a level 3, why is fate so cruel to me, he exclaimed in his mind in sorrow, but he knew better than to stay here. He tried standing, but as soon as he tried, he noticed, why can't I stand up, why can't I feel my whole lower body, my back? Lex screamed. Lex drowned in despair. He knew exactly what was going to happen to him, the gap in LVL and Lex's momentum being used against him as he hit his back on the sharp corner, was enough to paralyze his body. The strike to his spine and the shock it caused made Lex's nervous system collapse as his body slumped over the stairs. "Shit, I am so dead," he muttered pathetically, looking at the situation he was in. "I am so pathetic, haha, fate, if you had always wanted me to die, why didn't you just kill me when I was just a new-born child? Why do it now after so much suffering? At least now I will be put out of my misery." Depressed and unable to do anything, he closed his eyes and lay there unable to move like a slug, after keeping the small strand of hope that he could live a better life someday in the future. For 14 years, all of hard work was wasted, and Lex felt as though it was finally time to give up life. Seeing his sunken expression, Jonah smiled at him evilly, ready to get his revenge. "Let's take him to the woods to punish him for daring to harm my handsome face," he ordered angrily as he turned to leave and began to laugh like a maniac. Under his payroll, the goons had no way to refute, and being low-talented, were relying on Jonah's family resources to level up, and did as they were told, as they carried him to the back of one of the latest hovering cars, that were only allowed to be used in the city by those in the upper echelon. The world no longer had any laws, the strong and rich ruled, while the weak and the poor were left to be cannon fodders. Lex was merely a weak ant, just like the rest of those that didn't have the talent for leveling, who were also in similar situations to Lex, and had to resort to living in slums and working like slaves to earn enough to manage to feed themselves and their families. Unable to move and with no way to call out for help or escape, he gave in to fate, and he didn't do anything but wish for a good life, in his next life. After a while, he felt the car reach a halt. It's finally time for my death, he thought as he was carried away, not having any family, talent, or wealth. He had nothing to live for, as he was held by each limb and was thrown onto the ground. You have been a fly buzzing around me like a nuisance for the past 4 years, now time to get rid of you, Jonah announced as he kicked him in his stomach. Blurgh, vomiting due to the impact. With his useless body, he began to roll backwards continuously and only stopped after colliding with a tree. Beat him, then throw him off the cliff, he ordered as he turned around and walked away nonchalantly as if nothing happened. Jonah knew that the death of a non-leveler without a family or wealth would be easy to cover up, and with his family's influence, he would be able to bribe the government that was already collapsing and no longer caring about the people. As he saw him walk away as if nothing happened, Lex engraved the hatred in his heart and vowed that he would not allow anyone that had harmed him to get away with it. If he had the power and the opportunity to get revenge, blow after blow, his body began to shut down as he blurted out another dark red curdle of blood as he lay on the ground of the deserted woods. Seeing him on the verge of death, the evil goons of Jonah wanted him to have to feel the fear and despair of falling off a cliff, and didn't want Lex to die before feeling the sense of impending doom while falling off the cliff and being unable to do anything. They carried him and placed him on the edge of the cliff. The LVL-3 goon who punched him before, with the chance to display dominance, looked down at Lex with a wicked smile. "You little trash, time to die," he remarked as he kicked him off the side of the cliff without an ounce of remorse. Falling, he could hear their profuse laughter, and they didn't seem to feel any guilt and rather enjoyed it. As he fell, all that ran through his mind was hatred and revenge, and he had finally had enough of submitting to others. Splat. After a 20-meter fall, he lay there painfully half-dead with one of his limbs separated and blood splattered everywhere, as he waited dispiritedly for the Soul Reapers to take his soul. Ding, the I system has chosen you as a host. To accept, please say yes. Hearing this ring through his mind, being crazed with the drive to get revenge on all those who bullied him and shock all those who looked down on him, Lex was shocked and was wondering whether it was his mind trying to give him false hope on the verge of death. Ha ha ha. Fate, even when I am on the verge of death, you want me to suffer by giving me false hope. He muttered to himself. Unexpectedly, the voice rang out again, repeating the same thing. Looks like it wasn't just an illusion or fate giving me false hope, he thought, shocked by the revelation. On death's door, there was nothing he was unwilling to do if he had the chance at survival, and now, with this opportunity of survival opening his bloodied mouth, with great difficulty and pain he managed to utter through the blood rising in his throat, yes. His eyes felt a sharp pain as he no longer felt anything, neither any pain from his body nor the surroundings, as he has been teleported into another dimension. And gently his eyes closed, and this is his end, or so he thought. Seconds later, a blood-curdling scream from his sore and blood-filled full throat, which sounded like a demon, rang out. Ha! Fuck! His eyes started bleeding, and as if a needle pierced into his eyes, he felt a sharp pain from his iris, and his whole eyes started turning eerie red. After who knows how many hours later, finally the pain from his eyes receded, but still feeling uncomfortable in his eyes as if something sharp is poking it. Ding! The host has successfully merged with the I system, granting host many opportunities to gain remarkable and infinite I powers, and also by completing missions the host can gain rewards from the system. Current status: name, Lex Black Power. Mortal LVL1 talent. SSS state. Near-death I powers. None skills, none, stated a voice within his mind. Not really knowing what was going on, he was completely confused and dumbfounded, but knew that a weird system within his mind is promising him power and opportunities, which is exactly what he wanted and needed, and Lex was not one to miss out on a free lunch. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.